Hello, welcome to the G.I. Joe New News Review. I am David Allen. The following content was originally intended for the G.I. Joe fan club, but due to unforeseen circumstances, this content will no longer be used in that venue. And so I wanted to share them with you here. I hope you enjoy. Hello, welcome to another episode of the G.I. Joe Fan Club Live. I am David Allen. I am joined by my two co-hosts, Jason Murrow and Jason Packard. Jason Murrow is the host of the Order of Battle podcast. Jason Packard is the creator of custom G.I. Joe unique items such as file cards, challenge coins, blueprints, stickers, magnets. And we have our special guest for this week's episode, which is about G.I. Joe packaging art. And we are joined by Adam Riches, who is an extraordinary G.I. Joe fan, collector, and packaging artist. Hello. Thank you all for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Evening,
How
David.
you guys doing?
Good. So the idea of the G.I. Joe Fan Club Live is to cover a different topic of the G.I. Joe brand from its history, its inception to current. And so this episode is going to be about the packaging art of G.I. Joe, which is a huge, huge thing when it comes to G.I. Joe, because a lot of us probably wouldn't be into G.I. Joe if it wasn't for the packaging art. Hector Garrido created some beautiful artwork in the 80s for the original line through his graphic design company that was, I guess, hired by Hasbro, and he was one of the artists there that was licensed to or hired to do the artwork. But most of G.I. Joe's toys, history, anything that you can think of about G.I. Joe is connected to that artwork in some way. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Since that point, there have been a lot of different packaging art designs. I have a few samples here to show where the progression of G.I. Joe has gone since that original inception of Hector Garrido's artwork. We had the stuff like the Star Brigade and the Ninja Force with the longer cards. We had G.I. Joe Extreme and Sergeant Savage. If I can find my Sergeant Savage figure. I can't find my Sergeant Savage figure, but that's my G.I. Joe Extreme. There was the mid 90s, like 97, 98. They did packaging like that. And then that rolled into these. And then after that, there's my Sergeant Savage. I found it. Sergeant Savage. If you could see that. I don't know if that's a good thing. Then they went into, I think it was the G.I. Joe versus Cobra and Valor versus Venom packaging. There was also where is it? They did these little miniature ones, all these different miniature dollar store figures packaging like that, all different variations. And alongside of that, they were doing the G.I. Joe comic 3-pack and 2-pack packaging. And then the second G.I. Joe Club packaging, and then of course there was the third G.I. Joe Club packaging, which is this art was done by Adam Riches, one of my favorite characters, Cesspool. Then we have all the movie stuff, Retaliation, Rise of Cobra. You can see that at all, Rise of Cobra, Retaliation. Then there was the 2010 line of figures with that art. What else? Oh, I forgot the 25th anniversary, which is kind of a copy of the Hector Garrido art, the 25th anniversary artwork. And then they did the 50th anniversary packaging, kind of not too much art in that. And then Super 7 has been doing their own packaging art for theirs, and the Ultimates, not too much artwork on that, other than the box is really nice. And then Super 7 also did this really cool collector set, the Arctic Rescue Vehicle, which is also done, the art on that is done by Adam Riches as well. And then we have, oh, I can't believe I forgot this, Sigma 6 artwork, which is very unique because of these cool things like this. And then they did these weird little dollar store ones. And then, of course, Classified. This is the new version of Classified, where there's artwork all over the package and not just on the sides like the old packaging. The old packaging was window packaging, and there was some art on the edges and that like that. But the new packaging is all around, and this particular one is Sergeant Slaughter, which was done by Adam Riches again, which is a beautiful homage to the G.I. Joe 80s cartoon and all of Sergeant Slaughter's iterations, because there's wrestling nods on this as well. And then the last but not least, the current Hasbro O-ring packaging. And they've done a few specialty ones, like this cool Dr. Mindbender one. So that covers as much as I could scrape up packaging wise.
Okay, so let's take a look at the ones that really matter, which is, of
Vintage.
course, yeah, vintage. So here we have the flat logo. So 1982 to 1985, we had the explosion back. I might as well just take this out of the case so we can see it without the glare. Terrible, terrible glare going on over here,
And
guys.
so, Adam, you had a 70s Action Force package?
Yeah, I've got an Adventure Team karate set here. So
Oh, very nice.
I'm not sure who did this art. I kind of want to say, is it Petrucci maybe? I might be totally wrong about that. But yeah, very cool art, very painterly.
So that's just a sampling. I'm sure I missed stuff in there. And obviously we have Jason, he's got a picture of the classic air fighter pilot packaging from
My t-shirt, yeah. Of course, I have one in the other room I could also grab as well.
Well, I just wanted an example of it and show the fact that the packaging of G.I. Joe has changed dramatically over the decades. We're in the 40th year of ARA, and we're close to 59 years now for G.I. Joe's history. Next year is going to be the 60th anniversary of G.I. Joe from its inception. So with all of this that I've just shown, obviously we know Hector Garrido's art has been the most impactful. You as an artist, you as a packaging artist yourself, Adam, what do you think is the thing about the packaging art of Hector Garrido that really stands out and is what dragged us into G.I. Joe, probably from the peg hooks of a store, Kmart, whatever, while we walk by?
I think it's just dynamic. I mean, the explosion back immediately pulls your eye in. If you look at virtually, so all the toy lines of the 80s and 90s have exciting packaging. It's very colorful. It's very vibrant. I mean, it was made to sell, and it did. But there was just something so unique about the explosion back, I think, especially. And it draws on his experience, I think, doing pulp novels and romance novels and stuff. He had already developed a real style that carried over well to this. But though I will say, when I come into the line as a collector, probably around 89, 90, at that point, they'd actually already pivoted to Doug Hart being the one that was doing the primary card art. And the two of them, I feel like Garrido's name is so well known that Doug Hart has in many ways kind of gotten brushed aside by history. And you're starting to see him get a little bit of a renaissance now because he's doing all this artwork for these revival lines like Call Sign Longbow and Operation Recall, because obviously Hector's unfortunately no longer with us. But I think at the time that Hector's workload became almost too much to bear when the line was exploding and they transitioned to Doug, the transition is almost seamless if you really look at their art. I mean, there are telltale signs between the two of them that differentiate, but to answer your question though, I just think it's the dynamic is really the short answer. There's just something so eye-catching about that red, yellow, and white burst, and just seeing these characters that just it brought them to life. It made them real, and they're in some cases literally jumping off the card. It was hard to ignore.
So
Did you like the digital explosion more than the regular explosion?
Not to draw, but yes, I think I do actually.
Yeah.
Enormous pain to draw it, especially when you try to do it analog, which they were with a ruler and markers. Very little room for error there, but yeah, I think I did like it better actually. I don't know why, it appeals to my sensibilities, and I think you and I are very much in that same collector sphere. I know that you have a 90s focus as well, and
we started at the exact same time, and I think I'm only 1 year older than you. So I kind of got used to the explosions of the digital explosion being bigger. In other words, the individual lines are bigger and thicker in 90, 91, 92.
Yeah.
Because when they first started doing them in 86 and 87, it kind of looks from a distance like a regular explosion because it's very fine-tuned lines.
That's one of those things that I would love to know what the art director was thinking at that time, because knowing they had to do that by hand, I'm like, you can paint an explosion back very quickly, like in a matter of minutes. You can start making something that's sort of an amorphous shape that looks like that. But whoever thought it was a good idea to sit there individually ruling hundreds of lines like that, I was like, I think if I was Garrido or Hart at that time, I would have been like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, this is the worst idea ever. And once you've started that precedent, it's not like you can't just change halfway through the line. So,
Jason, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if the three of you guys have looked at the last issue 10. It's not the last ever, but the latest issue of Klingon Smith's book, Creating G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I have. Yes.
So in the beginning, they talk about the process and how Ed Morrell was really the designer of the card backs, and he would do the character sketches, and he came up with the idea of the explosion back, the logo, everything, and he was sending over his sketches and worm's eye view of the vehicles and everything to Garrido. So Garrido was really taking Ed Morrell's ideas and his sketches and then fleshing them from there. I think that's interesting. It goes into sorry, this one's the one that's still wrapped. It goes into the different changes from the explosion to the digital to the aura of the early 90s. And so Adam, as someone who's done packaging over a number of lines from the club to now classified, do you have that sort of oversight and direction, or are you just kind of giving carte blanche? Are you pitching to them instead of them pitching to you? Like, how does it work today?
Well, I think I'm sort of a unique circumstance, like particularly with classified, because I'm a fan. And I think that's really the big differentiator between me and the vast majority of people that have gotten to work on Joe packaging. And not to, I mean, everyone is a fan. If you say to anyone, did you like J. Joe? Of course, I played with it as a kid. Me and my brother, you hear the same story from everyone. But like, when I say I'm a fan, like I'm really a fan, and it's not a measuring contest, but I mean, like, I've devoted my whole life to J. Joe, so I think that in a lot of cases they defer to me because I'm overflowing with ideas. When I very first started with the club, they like nobody would ever give me like sketches, for example. Like, it wasn't as fleshed out as what Garrido was getting, but they would suggest poses like, okay, hands on hip, holding gun, looking to the right, pointing left, whatever, that kind of stuff. And for the most part, like, I would take that and interpret it in my own way. Sometimes I would send them a bunch of thumbnail sketches and let them pick. Sometimes I would look at it and say, I don't think this is right. Can we try something else? Because like I'll give you like an example. We did Ghost Rider for the club. I want to say that the direction on that originally was to like have him kind of standing there like holding up two guns like this, and I was like, well, we've basically already just done that pose with Steel Raven, and also like he's a pilot, you know what I mean? Like, and to me, he's like a hotshot, arrogant, you know. So if you look at what I actually did, I've got him with his arms crossed, and he's kind of got this, you know, cheese and smirk, and his, you know, his scarf's blowing in the wind. Like, it's a very collaborative process, you know, and I think it just depends. It depends on the person. Like for classified, I know that if especially like, you know, when they're dealing with like international artists and stuff, some of them probably have no experience with G.I. Joe. They didn't grow up with it. And in those instances, I think that they might come to them with direction and they just execute the idea but just because Hasbro wants to see their style on a package, you know, versus in my case, I was already pitching, you know, before I even had the job, I was already selling them on why I should do Slaughter and what it should be. So, you know, I think you might get a different answer if you ask somebody else, but I think for me, that's sort of the answer is it's just my fandom has seeped too far in to really get that much direction. I think usually I'm the one that's like, you know, they're trying to calm down my enthusiasm as opposed to give it to me.
I mean, that's special. I mean, that's special, and you can see that from Slaughter specifically because you had a chance to do so much on the package, whereas with the fan club stuff, it's just a single pose. You don't really get a chance to stretch. I've really enjoyed the multitude of styles across the classified line.
Yeah.
Even like the super cartoony or manga ones, as well as like yours, which is more realistic. I noticed when David was holding up all the different cards from all the different generations, there was, I mean, until really the fan club and I guess reusing Garrido's work in the 25th, there's just a real desert of interesting art to capture eyes, you know, through the late 90s and the early 2000s. So for them to prioritize art on these new boxes is really special.
Yeah, well, you know, and I got to say this about that. I think that G.I. Joe throughout the 80s and 90s, and the sales would reflect this, was a trailblazer. It was an innovative line, and I think that other lines were trying to follow suit and copy G.I. Joe's formula. I think throughout the 2000s, you see something else. You see G.I. Joe trying to chase trends and trying to catch up as opposed to being the innovator. And I've got to say, like, that's one thing that Classified really kind of got right in hindsight. And I will admit that when it first started, I was kind of a hater on the mixed packaging stuff because to me, you know, it's OCD, it's uniformity, it's everything has to be perfect and lined up and the same, you know. And when you had all these disparate art styles, I was like, what? This does not work at all. But now I feel completely different about it. I think now that we've kind of built up the line and we're, you know, whatever we are, 70 figures deep or something, when you see it all together in not with the numbered side out, but you know, when you see it like this, it's a very interesting visual, and there's so much to pick apart, and I think it's really fun the discussion that develops out of that, and picking your favorites, and you know what style meshes well and what doesn't, but it's like pop art to me at this point. You know, it's like there's this weird thing where when you have something like Garrido, which is so consistent and so good for so many years. Like, of course, we all have our favorites, but like on a shelf after a while, it's just, you know, 10,000 explosion backs versus when you see this, it's like every single one of them is its own completely unique experience. And I think when Classified is at its best, it's really, really interesting to see how the different artists have managed to capture the spirit of the character.
I think one of the fun things for us is we have the Classified Walmart case, that original Series 1. And so it holds 24 boxes. And I let the 11-year-old choose which pieces of art, which 24 boxes go on there. Mm-hmm. And as we continue to get things, he will, per figure, choose what goes to the wall and what gets put away for later. And every few months we can refresh that. And it becomes a real fun thing. Whereas most of us as collectors, when we collect card backs, we hang the card back on the wall like you have. And it just becomes, as you said, that mural of Garrido, of Hart, of the next guy. So it's kind of fun. I like it a lot.
That's an interesting point that you touch on, Jason, because we're all kind of from different generations. You and I are closer, Jason Morrell, and Jason Packard and Adam are kind of closer together. But we're all fans of G.I. Joe. And that original artwork was dynamic and extremely attractive to all of us in some way or form. And like you said, Adam, Hart came a little bit after Hector Grito, and his art, you can tell it's definitely a little more graphic than the earlier Hector Grito artwork, but still it captures the same elements, both eras of packaging. So what exactly in that Hector Grito style do you think we were all drawn to individually? I'll start with Adam.
Just the excitement. It just brings the toy to life. I think that's what it really is. I mean, as a kid, it's a story in a single image. It's like the definition of a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think when you saw that thing and you saw whatever character it was, doing their action on the card, it's like immediately your imagination started to go into all these fantasy scenarios about what you could do with the figure and how you could enact that in real life.
Jason Morrell.
I mean, Ed Morrell's whole idea with the packaging, as Adam just said, it was really to show kids what they could do. It was to pop off the shelf. I mean, even Star Wars, who popularized the 375, you were just looking at the figure on the card art or a movie scene on the card art. This gave us, even in 82 and 83, when they only had like one piece of gear, like it really exploded. I guess there's a pun there. And and we were excited. You stared at the shelves and you had to go through and choose your favorite one. You had Larry and you had Garrido. Because at that point the figure, and by the way, like, I don't like modern packaging. I love the way they would just seal the figure and the equipment separately, like in that 80s style. But it's not super compelling seeing a bubble of randomized figures, but you get that artwork, you get the file back, you get all of the thumbnails, and you could waste your parents' time in an aisle just trying to make a decision.
Jason Packard.
So what I would say that I like about it a lot is not just the excitement and the posing of what you can do with the gear, but if you just look at the expressions, there's so much raw emotion. Some of the Cobras, for example, you can't quite see what's going on behind that helmet, that mask, but like the eel, I still remember that from when I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7 years old. He's absolutely menacing looking, just the way his eyebrows are, just the way his face is sneering at the camera. The way the Baroness kind of has the femme fatale look where she's both attractive and deadly at the same time. And then, of course, you have like the shots of Hawk where he's yelling. I never did like how Hawk himself is kind of smirking and how Hawk on the card is kind of like yelling. But yeah, what I get from it is just, there's a lot of emotion in it. The same thing goes with even like some of the later Cobras, like Adam. You can tell that he's very determined when he's firing a submachine gun and clearly deflecting bullets off his shield, Naugahyde, and so many others, right?
Yeah. So. But for myself, it was that kind of excitement that the card backs kind of were almost 3D, kind of, if you want to look at it from that aspect, because I was coming from Masters of the Universe that had these beautiful tapestries of artwork that were like beautiful fantasy paintings, and then G.I. Joe was like this 3D explosion of this guy coming forward and kind of grabbing me on the aisle. Obviously, I saw the cartoon first before I got into the toys and the comics, but it still was a exciting, dynamic thing that grabbed me. And I think we are all attracted towards visceral things that like pop or grab our eyes that you don't normally see every day, if I'm not mistaken. And I think GI Joe captured that with their advertising and their packaging. I would
Absolutely.
like to ask. I would like to ask, putting Hector Greedo and the original Aura 82 to 94 aside, were there any other packaging designs over the last 40 years that grabbed you guys that you thought, wow, they really captured what they tried to capture in the original 80s? Which figure?
Transformers, for sure. Transformers, I think, was almost equal to GI Joe in the vintage era between 1984 and like 1992, 93, second generation. I would say they were almost as good, if not as good,
Adam?
because they actually had painters. But yep, go on.
Are you talking about different toy lines that captured it, or in GI Joe?
You could go either way because, like I said, I love the Masters of the Universe packaging art. I think they're absolutely beautiful.
I mean, as far as like dynamic toy packaging, the original early '90s X-Men Toy Biz stuff always really gripped me. I think just how colorful and how vibrant that very like four color '90s comic look. You know, it's still iconic, and they're still riffing on it today, like everything else, where they go back to the nostalgia well for the 100th time.
Mhm.
but there's a reason, and it's because it's awesome. You know, obviously we can't get enough of it. As far as GI Joe goes, I think that beyond the original 80s and 90s O-ring run, the next time that I remember really feeling that like serious like emotional feeling about it was Pursuit of Cobra. And even though that art is very sleek and glossy and digital, I think just and some of it's the quality of the figures too, and the fact that they were on individual cards and everything, but the 25th line felt so rooted in nostalgia still, and a lot of it are just straight up clones of Garrido's work. And so Pursuit of Cobra felt like the first time that like I was saying earlier, how it felt like throughout the 2000s, G.I. Joe was kind of chasing. I felt like that was the first time where it was like, okay, we're taking charge again. I mean, the artwork is absolutely top notch. The packaging, very, like expensive looking, I guess would be how I'd best describe it. And the toys, of course, had some incredible detail, like suntan spray airbrush and metal chains and soft goods, like just things that you don't see even still now in classified. Like, I mean, the deco cost on those figures must have been astronomical. So I think that artwork really was like the cherry on top for Pursuit of Cobra. That was a big one for me.
Jason Merle?
Yeah, I think outside of G.I. Joe, Mask. Yeah, Transformers had beautiful art, but it was one piece of art on the back. They all had it.
That's true.
There were other toy lines that had nice art, like you mentioned. Motu had the beautiful landscapes, but Mask really used the toys in their packaging in a similar way that GI Joe did. You got to feel like what you could do with the toy. It brought it to life, considering it was like now classified, completely encapsulated in cardboard. You couldn't see the toy like you could a Transformer, a Motu, a Joe. In terms of G.I. Joe, honestly, it's classified for me. Even with Pursuit of Cobra, like it feels like, and don't get me wrong, I loved a lot of the artwork from the fan club, and I love seeing, the 25th and things like that, but that's just chasing Garrido. And even Doug Hart and whoever came after Doug, their hands were kind of tied by following in the footsteps of Garrido. And so it's really not until classified that it looks and feels like we get something outside of that realm, something unique coming back to the toy line. So even if we went back to a Garrido style explosion or a Doug Hart and a digital camo, it would still be chasing the past instead of pushing for the future. And so as much as I love that artwork, I like that artwork where it belongs in the past, and I like us moving forward with G.I. Joe.
I think for my estimation, I think there's a joining of those two things, like Jason, you just said. You have to have that nostalgia because it has to feel like G.I. Joe. And it needs to move forward for the future generations to grab that new generation. And I do agree with Adam Riches about the new classified artwork. I think they've gotten some fantastic artists that have done some absolutely brilliant pieces of art on those, and I wish they would do an art book or something that has all these arts, full pictures of all these people's art, because it's a shame that the packaging kind of chops it up a little bit. And I know this is a negative because a lot of people don't like the new packaging, but I do believe you really do get more of the artist's interpretation with this, for at least G.I. Joe. Maybe not for Star Wars and Marvel, but definitely for G.I. Joe, we get to see more of the artist's interpretation of the character, because it's not only the front, it's on the side as well. And so I think it's actually a plus, in my opinion. That's my opinion, folks, that I think the new packaging is actually better than the old packaging, because I want to see everybody's interpretation of these characters, what their inspirations are for these characters, and the different styles. Like, show that Zorana figure, Adam. There's that cool cartoony style. This artist obviously did, I think, Kamakura and Zorana, and he's got a different style. So I could also bring my Crimson Twins, which I love that Pantheon, that parallel Crimson Twin art. I have them over there, but I think everybody's style, Spirit, I don't know what it is about the Spirit artwork, but it just like grabs me, that Spirit artwork, and it's totally different than any other artwork up until that point. And so I want to see all these artists' interpretations of these characters. It's why we're all probably fans of G.I. Joe, because the original art grabbed us, but now we want to put forth our own inspiration for that artwork. So I agree with both Adam and Jason that I think the new classified is probably the best G.I. Joe packaging that has been probably in the last 40 years, since Hector and Hart and that. But I still love my Sigma 6 boxes, because I like that weapons cache thing that they did. You know, the what do you this where they put the weapons and stuff, which classified is starting to take from, actually. So we can all be inspired by different eras of G.I. Joe, not just Hector, Greedo, and Hart. So there you go.
I think a good marriage between those would be taking the back of the classified boxes and getting rid of that Transformers-esque single piece of art, and marrying it with the nostalgia of thumbnails. They don't have to do thumbnails now because everything's numbered. If you have box 73, you know there's 72 you don't have.
Well,
but you miss that. Although I do like that they do show what gear your figure comes with now with the new box packaging. So that's kind of a...
It does show the gear, kind of like a pose, like a who's who type of thing, order of battle type of a thing, where it's like a weapons type thing. I kind of like that other artwork with the especially the Target exclusive artwork, where they had the different maps and things in the background that gave you a story element. I thought this artwork, not this artwork. I'm
not saying the artwork is bad. I'm just saying that
because
it runs across all of them.
It kind of harkens to the cross-sell. Harkens back to the cross-sell instead of getting the little thumbnails of all the characters. It kind of is a big like picture of all the cross-sells put in one thing. That's why I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I see your point as well, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of things on the classified packaging. I've got to say, in a perfect world, I really think if what we should have had was this, because I completely agree.
I like those.
I love the full wrap art, obviously, and I think I was kind of the guinea pig as one of the first people to do that. And honestly, I think it was to my great benefit, because even though I prefer the windowed packaging, it would have sucked to have put that much effort into something only to see a little bit of sliver of that art, So selfishly, I was thrilled that I got a whole box. But I got to say this too, though, like, you get all these weird design challenges that come up because, so obviously we all agree we like that the back shows the full contents, the spread. But now you've got this on the front, which is obstructing, really, that's a pretty good piece of real estate on the art now. And especially like in my case, there was a gag here with a toy that got obstructed by a toy. So that was kind of a buzzkill. But, I think that anytime you're doing any of this art, there's always limitations to the presentation. Just like on blister carded figures, you were limited by the amount of size you had to use. So there is no perfect scenario, but I definitely have to agree, though. I think classified, and particularly the plastic-free classified, is giving the best focus and the best variety of art that the line's probably had ever, really.
I want to go back and look at the Pursuit of Cobra stuff now that you've brought it up, because for me, I glossed over it because it just felt like the rest of that era, which was either just a copy of the past or kind of boring. So now, like, after what you just said, it makes me want to go back and pay attention to something that I just sort of glossed over.
What's really interesting about that art? If you don't really see it so much on the printed material, but Mike Thompson did a lot of that art. And if you go to his blog, there is, and it's digital. So I think for a lot of people, they treat digital like it's some kind of cheat, but there is so much detail in that art. I mean, every little zipper and like skin texture, like zombie viper. I mean, like crazy, crazy detail that I think maybe doesn't really reflect. And this is something I actually struggle with as an artist too. I've heard Todd McFarlane talk about this, that he always tells young artists, don't zoom in, because I think this is a mistake that we all make with digital art. When you're drawing on a piece of paper, the tangible object in front of you is what it is. But when you're looking at something that's 600 DPI in Photoshop, you can zoom and zoom and zoom until you're literally into a micro pixel. And that's Sergeant Slaughter art. You could probably print that thing like the size of a billboard, but when it's printed, it's like 6 by 9 inches. And so I'm just as guilty of that as anyone. I mean, I was in there like microscopic detail, it's like it was completely unnecessary. But I think that was a big thing with that Pursuit of Cobra art. Like, if you really go try and find the original digital images that Mike Thompson posted, and I think you might even have a new appreciation for it when you see what really went into it versus what's showing up in print.
You can't really.
I will do that.
I can see what you're saying, because you could put little teeny sky strikers in the guy's reflection of his glasses. That's how deep that artwork goes.
Yeah, there was even other, actually, since you brought that up, it was so cool that one of the requests I had made to them was I had noticed on some of the earlier art that there were these little spot varnish hits and spots. And I was like, I wonder if the artist had any say, or if someone just decided to do that. And so I asked them, can we put a gloss varnish on the center image on the box and on the lens of his glasses on the side? And they said, if you can give us a layer mask. So I did, and I didn't even know actually until I had it in hand whether they'd done it or not. But that made such a big difference to me. It was like a personal victory. So when you turn that box sideways now, you probably even see how his glasses have a special lens reflection.
That's perfect.
So those
absolutely perfect.
And same on the front. Like, I was trying to find a way to get that center image to pop from the others, and obviously that gloss really did that. So that's another cool thing about classified. Like, there's I got to shout out the people we worked with on that line actually too. Cecil, who's the art director on that line, and Kayla, who was the graphic designer that did all that stuff. She's no longer with Hasbro, but the two of them were just so open to ideas and so passionate about what they do, and I think it really reflects in a lot of the end products for the classified line.
So with taking it back to the fan club, how did that feel for you, trying to work in that legacy Garridos or Hart style? Because you're really, at that point, you're kind of trying to ape someone's style from at that point 30 years ago, but you still have to do it in your own. So
Yeah.
how did that differ from you just being able to vomit like your love onto people and them go, yes?
You want my honest answer? Limiting.
Sure.
I felt handcuffed. And I think that's why you start to see at the very end, right before the club ceases operations, I got to finally crack the code, and I got to do two that were wholly uniquely me, and that was Payload, where I put him in outer space, and
Great
Coils
figure.
O'Doom, which I got to actually do a traditional painting of, which I think at that time there hadn't been a traditionally painted Joe card in 20 years or something. That was very freeing, because it felt like the shackles had been taken off a little bit, because even though what I was doing on that club art, I would call it a sort of evolved or amped up version of that 80s art, because it's digital, obviously, and it's a lot more detailed. Ultimately, it was still trying to kind of fit in with that established brand style. And like, I don't even know what my own personal style is. I should say that as a caveat. Like, there's some artists that you can look at them immediately and be like, oh, that's so and so. I don't feel like I actually have that. I feel like my strength as an artist is versatility, and that I kind of, without sounding arrogant, I feel like I could paint like anyone, but I don't know what I am, if that makes sense. Like, I think my style is actually an attempt at trying to be all the things I love, failing at it, and ultimately it turns into my own thing, But like, growing up as a young artist, I really I wanted to be Todd McFarlane, then I wanted to be Drew Struzan. Like, those are my guys, those are the styles that I wanted to have. And so I think, I would shoot for the moon and hit the stars. That was kind of what happened. And so like, doing the club stuff, like I look at it and I still feel something. It's still mine, but like, for sure, it's not, if you'd completely left me to my own devices and just handed me a figure and said, interpret this however you want, like, that's not what would have come out, It was me through the filter of the 80s and 90s through Photoshop. Like, that's kind of, and that's a weird thing.
But the fact that you say that, but aren't we all doing that in one aspect or another? Aren't we all who are fans of this brand, at least the last 40 years, maybe even 60 years, that are doing our own stuff in the world, whether we're doing this type of work, or whether we're doing books, whether we're doing comic book review stuff? Aren't we all interpreting G.I. Joe through our own lens and putting out what we feel is the best thing that we can do?
Sure. I mean, I think that we all, at the end of the day, we love G.I. Joe. And I think that inherently is rooted in nostalgia. And so, to some extent, we're all always going to be doing that. We're all going to be going back to what made us love it in the first place, because the truth is we're adults and we're jaded, and not, I mean, I think about this all the time. Like, all of my favorite movies pretty much, stopped by the late 90s, or, a lot of my favorite music kind of stops by the late 90s, because that's when you're a sponge. That's when everything is new and fresh and innovative, and it's the first time seeing it. And now, it's nostalgia, and it's regurgitated a million times over. So I think we all appreciate it, and we all try to contribute to the fandom in our own ways, and we all still enjoy it in our own ways. But I think the reason we go back to that well over and over, and not just with G.I. Joe, but with every toy line, is because that's that sweet spot. That's when you were a kid, and that's what made you fall in love with it in the first place. And I think we're all just trying to chase that good feeling. We all want that warm, fuzzy vibe again. We want to, as life continues to get more, adult and horrible and bills and health and everything else, like, you want to revert back to your happy place.
Yep.
Jason Packard, you are interpreting the artwork in your own way, with a lot of your challenge coins and blueprints and file cards and so on and so forth. What is your interpretation of how it's viewed 40 years later?
So, I mean, I like to have a certain amount of classicness to it, or classicality to it. So when it comes to the file cards that I'm doing, like I did for Captain Bob and I did for the new Gambler, which is a fighter pilot, that was very simply trying to make it appear as it would have appeared if it was produced in 1989. So I try to get the artwork to be exactly the same. You just add some grayscale to A's to make Captain Bob. For Gambler, I just took a high resolution scan of Fighter Pilot and put him in the cockpit of the Night Boomer or the Sky Striker to make it appear that he's flying the plane. A lot of that's more of a writing project, obviously, but that's what I would say is I'm trying to kind of like, it's more of a period piece in a sense that it's made as if it was produced in that time, and I try to be as close as I can to get to that. When it comes to challenge coins, there's a little bit more leeway as far as that. I try to get the artwork on it to be, usually it's like a logo, for example, the Crimson Guard logo or the Viper's skull patch logo. But when it comes to the artwork on the flyers that come with it, oftentimes I use a photograph of the action figure, and I just I filter it and add like a penciling filter or a grayscale filter to it, and then of course vignette the edges of it to make it look like it has a good appearance to it. The Create a Cobra coin that comes out next, though, I used a live action photograph of myself wearing the outfit for the coin, which I'm just finishing up now. And then for the flyer, that's actually not going to have really artwork at all. It's going to be something you'll recognize maybe from 92 or 93. But anyways, yeah, go on.
So we've talked about obviously the domestic GI Joe packaging pretty in depth here. Is there a foreign packaging that you guys, I don't know how well versed you are in foreign GI Joe or not, maybe the Fun School, maybe Action Force, maybe the Chinese and Japanese, maybe the Australian, the Canadian, which is slightly different than the American. Was there a packaging that grabbed you that maybe you wished, God, I would have liked to have seen more of that? Because in my opinion, I love the Asian GI Joes. I think they're beautiful. The yellow and the blue like melding behind it with the different style of lettering and stuff. That's not quite the same as our lettering. It's off a little bit.
You mean Japan, right?
Yeah, the Takara.
Takara, yeah.
The Takara. So in 1986, Takara made most of the GI Joe line that was available from 83, 84, and 85. And the bad guys got a kind of, you know what it reminds me of? If you remember Mega Man 1, and I think it was Mega Man 1, the early Capcom NES cartridges for the Nintendo.
Yeah.
They had like a laser grid thing going on. It kind of looked like Tron, if you remember that kind of.
I love Tron.
But yeah, the bad guys got a red laser grid going on. The good guys, of course, got the blue laser grid. They only did 1 year. They only did, I think it was 86 into early 87, and then it just didn't sell well enough, so they cut it. But I think the Takara G.I. Joe is probably, of all the foreign lines, that was, I would say, probably my favorite packaging art. A close second would be United Kingdom's Tiger Force, like Outback, Hit and Run, and all of them, because they had a cool looking tiger pattern going on in the back of that one, I think.
Jason Murrow.
I think for me, the Mexican boxes are some of my favorite packaging. I mean, they do lose some of that art, but like that, because it's shrunk down, but then you have the cool flat file card. It's absolutely my favorite foreign stuff. I like the unique things, like Sky Patrol from Brazil, or Tiger Force from the UK. So anything that's a little different than ours, and that the Mexican boxes really touch that very hard for me.
Eco Warriors from Fun School were they out of this world?
They were. Yep.
Yeah. All very cool picks. Those Mexican ones for sure really stick out. I remember there was a store I used to go to as a kid that had a whole wall of vintage Joes, a comic store, and at the top row they had a few of those, and I was always enamored with them. And I'm frankly shocked that we've never revisited that packaging style for something, because it's such a unique, cool design. As far as a favorite though, and I say this unironically, that Fun School windmill is the absolute worst art I've ever seen in my life, and I totally love it because of that. I can't remember what you see this viral post all the time on like Facebook. I can't remember what it is, but it's like I don't want to say the wrong place. There's some foreign market that they would reinterpret movie posters, and they're all painted really bad, but like there's something so charming about that. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of that Fun School stuff, where it almost, like, in some strange way, like, it conveys the innocence of childhood in the art. Like, it almost looks like a kid's crayon drawing or something. Like that windmill, funny enough, the club did a update of Fun School Windmill, and I remember at the time I really was entertaining the idea of, like, is there any way that I could, like, redo that pose but, like, try to make it good as, like, a funny homage? But ultimately that's not what happened. But I love that art, though. I think that one really I just laugh every time I look at it. I can't get enough.
It goes, "Hey mom, can we have windmill?" No, we got windmill at home. Windmill at home, right? Yep.
So before we have to let Adam go, I wanted to mention briefly, he redesigned the logo and the interpretation for Grunt for the G.I. Joe fan club, the modern G.I. Joe fan club. And I really love this design. I think it's beautiful. You brought all the elements of the original Hector Greedo Grunt into the future as a modern military type figure, and I think you did a really good job.
Oh, thanks, man. I gotta say that the entire idea for that is completely James Kavanaugh. I was just a set of hands that executed it. He sent me all the reference materials of the exact specs he wanted the suit to have. The only thing that was kind of interesting about that was that the original 82 Grunt artwork, which obviously that pose is based on, does not have a left foot. And the way that he's posed, if you really analyze that art, it's impossible. Like, he couldn't be standing that way. If he had drawn his left foot, like, it wouldn't be there. So, but fortunately, in 2018, I had already done a poster for the 50th, or not the 50th, sorry, the whatever it was, the final Joe convention. We did a poster that was exclusive to the show that had an homage for the 64 art and the 82 art. And so we chose Grunt for the 82 art because he most resembled Action Soldier. And so I had already previously gotten to solve that problem of what would his leg look like if you could see the rest of it. So because of that, I kind of had a cheat for when I got to do the fan club recreation art, that I already knew what to do with that leg, because ultimately you had to kind of reposition his whole left leg or it just doesn't work. So it's and also, fun fact, I'm sure a lot of people already know this, but the 82 Grunt pose ends up getting recycled for Dusty's art. So it's kind of a fun tidbit.
Yep, they painted over a lot of the old stuff. That's the reason why a lot of the stuff that we had in 83, 82 to 85, when they reused it for Tiger Force, Night Force, Python Patrol, pretty much any of the subgroups, a lot of them just got painted right over again.
Sadly. Absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yep. It is.
Well, especially because they didn't have a means to get a really, really high quality reproduction of the original before this. So whatever we have out there is what we have, like.
That's why they just painted right on top of the, 18 by 24 inch painting that they originally had. And then that's what they had. So in Hasbro's headquarters, as I understand, in like the hallway, one of the hallways, they have all the Tiger Force and Python Patrols. And if someone says, "Why don't you have the regular Crimson Guard?" It's like, well, that is the regular Crimson Guard. We painted over it because we didn't know any better. So,
so I want to thank you, Adam, for joining us.
Absolutely.
Talking about the G.I. Joe packaging. I'm sure we could continue for many hours talking about this because it's so interesting. And maybe we'll touch on it again in the future in another episode. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Oh, definitely, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. It was awesome getting to chat with you guys. And speaking of G.I. Joe packaging art, everyone look forward to getting your HasLab Sky Strikers in the mail, where you will see my yet another Hector Greedo homage of the Night Force Ripcord art that I did. So keep your eyes on your mailboxes.
You're the one that did the Night Force Ripcord?
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. Awesome. That was the figure that I was so looking forward to them reaching that goal on that. I was like, please get to that Ripcord.
Yeah.
He's like one of my
everyone's excited about that. Very, very excited.
Awesome, man.
That's so awesome. Thank you for letting us know that. I did not know that.
Yeah. Cool, guys. So keep your eyes out for that, and I will be back in the future. And I'm happy to discuss this again because, like you said, we've got almost 50 years of history. There's a lot to discuss.
It's a lot.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, guys.
So,
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
No, Joe. So we can go over a few more little tidbits about packaging because we never touched on vehicle packaging. And I should have got this while Adam was here. Obviously, he did the Arctic Rescue Vehicle from Super 7. And so that is one of the most unique things about G.I. Joe artwork in and of itself. Some vehicles, I think, sell themselves by their packaging art, like the Havoc. God, I love the packaging art on the Havoc. It's one of my favorite. I think the Sky Striker, beautiful. The hovercraft, the Moray, beautiful artwork on those vehicles. Which vehicle do you guys feel really was outstanding based on the artwork of the packaging? Jason Packard.
I mean, there's so many. There's just so many, and the vehicles are kind of like the main feature of G.I. Joe. I know the characters kind of touch us all individually, but the vehicles are meant to be the most impressive parts, and all of them are truly special.
Oh, the Tomahawk. Oh my God.
Yep, I have one up there. I should probably just start dragging some of these down and just kind of showing. So what you'll notice about G.I. Joe packaging when it comes to the vehicles is they predominantly move from the left to the right. They're always in motion. You always have motion involved. So you can see, of course, wheels and treads are kicking up earth. You can see jet thrust or prop wash on the propeller-driven stuff. They usually move from left to right because as an English society, we predominantly read from left to right. So typically we're going to start, when you see them, you're going to read the vehicle's name. You're going to look to the right. You're going to see more stuff going on. Another thing that they did when they designed vehicles and the packaging art is they try to have at least two weapon sources firing. So in the case of the Razorback, you have at least one surface-to-air missile firing. You have at least the main cannon firing. And you'll notice on the Hurricane, it's the same idea. You have the cannon blasting, you have two missiles launching, and then the drones also firing. They got even more ambitious back when it came to like 91, 90, 92. But I would say, to give you an honest answer, my favorite vehicle, as far as the artwork is concerned, I really like the domestic market Hurricane. I think that maybe the English market Hurricane is about as good. But they're all just absolutely fantastic. Every one of them, the way they did the explosion back with them, the way they really framed everything. I love them all. The Condor, actually, I put the Condor up there. I keep looking around my office and I'm like, oh, I love that one too. I love that one too. I should probably drag the Tomahawk down, but whatever. Anyways, go on.
Jason Murrell. Hey, Alexander. Which vehicle G.I. Joe art do you like, Alexander?
Is he there? I can't even hear him.
Because he didn't have the headset on. Alexander, which G.I. Joe vehicle art do you think is the best?
Does the flag count?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Flag.
Okay, I agree with you on that one.
That works. The flag's actually kind of interesting now that you mention it, because the flag, there is no firing weapons on it. It's more or less like a peacetime exercise. It shows Sky Strikers launching and F-14s launching off the catapults and landing. But yeah, that's actually one thing really unique about it is that there's no weapons being fired on that package. When you take the Defiant and the Terrordrome, which are the other two big ones, and the General, I guess you could say the other three big ones, there are weapon systems.
What about the MCC?
MCC.
No, the MCC definitely has missiles launching and guns blazing, I think. Now that you mention it, I think the flag is the only G.I. Joe vehicle that doesn't have weapons being operated on it, I think.
That's an interesting thing.
Like on the box?
Mhm.
Yeah, no, you know what? Let me check this. I think maybe some of the like one of the little like the anti-aircraft cannons in the front, maybe those are being operated. Let me find out.
So while we wait on Jason Packard, Jason Merle, what is your favorite packaging art for a vehicle?
What's your favorite packaging art for a vehicle?
I can hear him. That's a difficult one. Because I just start going all the way back to, the ones I didn't get and the ones I stared at the longest, So I start looking at the Whale and the Sky Striker because I didn't have those, or the Night Raven. So I don't know. I don't really have like a singular favorite piece of vehicle art. I tend to just they all kind of fall in the same sweet spot. They show you playing with the toy, and I can't wait to rip the box open, put the vehicle together, carefully, meticulously put on those stickers, and then destroy those stickers out in the backyard with dirt bases and rocks and everything else.
Of course.
You bring up an interesting point about the fact that there's so many unique GI Joe vehicles and the artwork. What do you think? Which one do you think? Which artwork do you think kind of captured that vehicle in its essence in the environment? I'm not saying what your favorite vehicle is, but what do you think? Which packaging art do you think captured the vehicle in its best essence?
I think probably
the
like
original line.
Maybe like
Jason.
like the Bug or the Rolling Thunder. Both of those really captured them in their environment, doing their thing to the best of their ability.
Absolutely. I would say, from my opinion, the one that captured it the most, I'm looking right at it, I would say the Crusader space shuttle or the Cobra Hammerhead, because the space shuttle is orbiting the Earth, right? And the Hammerhead is shown emerging on a rocky beach in probably North America. That kind of shows what it would be doing. Oh, by the way, the flag does have one weapon operating, just the small anti-aircraft gun turret on the front of it. That's it. So I guess every GI Joe vehicle has weapons operating on it, really.
I kind of like the tactical battle platform. I think it's
good.
very unique because there's a lot going on in that packaging. And I'm a water type guy, and I love water adventures and stuff like that. So that's why I love your answer, Alexander, about the flag. But I love the Havoc as well. There's something unique about that I feel kind of grabs me when it comes to more of a futuristic, where GI Joe was always said to be just ahead of the normal military, the future, just in the future of the normal military.
One generation.
I thought the Havoc kind of encapsulated that just in the future, and it was beautiful artwork with the hovercraft coming off it and the different things going on there. So those are two that I really like a lot. What do you guys feel the difference between figure artwork from Hector Garrido's artwork and vehicle artwork, the different challenges each of those had in the original era?
I mean,
Jason.
Just from a simple perspective, a vehicle in and of itself is quite boring. So you have to put it in motion. And to do that, they had to use the figures to show it in motion. That's why you have the guns firing on the vehicles, but also you have people with their weapons coming out of windows, coming out of doors, firing and things like that. So the vehicle is really just such a very static thing without the human element, whereas the humans are by nature in motion.
That's right. And you have to, when you show, like, for example, you show the Python stun, you got a Viper, a Crimson Guard, a Televiper, like everyone's really in their moment taking control of that thing. When you look at that, you think to yourself, this is going to be a ton of fun because I can put my favorite characters right into that and I can be part of the action, just like the Sky Striker, just like anything. The Tomahawk is probably one of the best examples of that. I mean, unless you're going to get into like the Defiant, but like the Tomahawk, you got 2, 3, 4, you got like 6 guys all manning machine guns, flying it, screaming, pointing around. There's so much action going on that, and it puts you into the element of the vehicle. It adds that certain character to it.
So the thing about the whole G.I. Joe from the 80s reimagination of the brand for a new era in 82, what do you think the thought process, because this was supposed to be a vehicle line, it turned out to end up being more of a figure line. Why do you think the shift was? Why do you think they shifted gears and made it into a figure line? Was it the designs of the packaging? Or was there other elements? The vehicles maybe were too expensive. The packaging didn't really give you that energy that you really wanted. Where do you think that fell off for Hasbro in the 80s?
That's a very simple answer right here for you. So G.I. Joe was intended originally to be a vehicle line, and the figures were going to be added just to fill them out. One of the reasons why is there's actually a bit more profit in selling vehicles because you can price those at $9, $10, $15, $20, sometimes even more than that, depending on the year. You make a lot more money off of that, and it's a lot simpler to make those because it's only several plastic components pressed together, whereas figures, there was much more involved in them. There was obviously, I think an O-ring figure has something like 18 individual parts just for a tiny piece that they're going to sell for $249 at retail, right? But the reason why is because as humans, we associate with other humans. And when they give us a comic book and they give us a cartoon that's syndicated and it's brought to life with excellent voice actors, Bill Ratner, for example, Chris Latta, and so on and so forth, all of a sudden, you start to develop more of an interest in the figures than you do the vehicles. And then next thing you know, although both are selling well, it didn't quite go the way that they originally hoped. They ended up being more popular as a figure line than a vehicle line. And then to kind of foray off it.
Yeah, you also have parents who are willing to buy figures. They're cheaper and they take up less room.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good point you bring up. And just to foray off of that, in the modern time, I know so many collectors our age, in their 40s and 50s, that actually only collect figures. They don't bother with vehicles because you can fit the entire A-Raw line on like one decent display cabinet. But when you start adding vehicles, I mean, it'll eat your house. Yeah. I have to hang every aircraft on the wall. All around my room right now is just aircraft. And I hang my Terradrome on the wall. I hang my General on the wall. My flag has been sitting in a box since I moved to Florida in 2013. And it's just never been put out again. It's just in a closet somewhere. So I know the feeling.
Jason Morrell? Your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we kind of went through that. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, as Packer just said, like, I'm sitting in a room that is surrounded by vehicles, and we have hundreds of figures in one cubby.
Yep, it's true. It's true. Everything has to be hung on the wall. One example, I'll just show that. But let me see if I can flip that camera around. But one example of that is like, the Defiant hanging on the wall, right? Mamba hanging on the wall. Sky Strikers on the wall. See, it's literally the only way this can be done. Because if you try to do everything in horizontal shelving and horizontal space, I mean, I've seen a couple of guys do it where they have stacks where it's like one shelf and then maybe 10 inches down another shelf and so on and so forth. But it kind of restricts the eye appeal, and it doesn't really make it easy to see what's going on, I guess. I don't know.
As we play, so there is no hanging. Everything has to be accessible so that we can get on the floor and have a battle.
I see. Okay.
But even still, we can keep our figures in the Tara cases, and it's perfect. The vehicles, they just take up room. So that's probably, I mean, you know, we're speculating, of course, but these are pretty decent speculations on why it went from a vehicle line to a figure line.
Honestly, I think a lot of the reason we have so many vehicles is vamps.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Vamp is a
they did
sturdy
use a
vehicle
vamp
too. That's a sturdy
Yeah.
vehicle. I'm kind of like what Jason Packard was saying. I have shelving like that where I've put all my 90% of my vehicles of my original 82 to 94 run on shelving, and then I incorporated a few things that he showed me with the hanging of jets and things like that. So let's round this up and kind of give our favorite interpretation of a character in packaging that we think was the very best version of that in packaging that you can think of. I know there's a lot, but do the best you can. Jason Packard.
Okay. I'm just looking around the room, but I mean, one that I really think looks great that's worth notably mentioning just for the sake of brevity is the Alley Viper, 1989. And the reason why is he's firing his submachine gun, he's bracing it against the shield, firing his submachine gun, he's got a menacing look on his face, on his eyes, and he's also deflecting fire off of the shield at the same time. I think that really embodies the action of what an Alley Viper would go through. So that would be probably my pick before I look around the room and see something else that I like more.
Alexander.
Probably cesspool. It was like
Creepy.
cesspool.
Yeah, he's coming at you.
Jason Morrell.
For me, it's Zartan. He's on the swamp skier. He's coming through an environment. He's menacing. He's got his gun out. It really captures what you're about to do with this figure, and it's a lot of fun.
And see that Zartan is really, really close in my estimation as probably one of the best packaging figure arts if he didn't have a vehicle. But my favorite figure packaging is the Crimson Twins because it's probably the most unique packaging art of the original run. And it's very beautiful in and of itself. I don't have an original one, but I've seen that artwork in many different ways over the years. And it's very unique. The mirror aspect of it with the two side mirrors and things like that, I thought it's very unique packaging. And I think sells that toy really good. So I want to thank you both for joining me. The G.I. Joe Fan Club Live is for members of the G.I. Joe Fan Club who have bought memberships. And so if you would like us to cover certain topics or certain conversations you would like us to have with creators of G.I. Joe, folks from the past or the future, because the future's not here yet, so we can still ask those questions. Feel free to let us know below. This is going to be on the G.I. Joe Fan Club YouTube channel and the G.I. Joe Fan Club Facebook page. I appreciate all you guys watching out there in G.I. Joe land, and I thank Jason Packard, Jason Morrell.
I got one more thing to add to this.
Oh, sorry.
One more thing really quick. G.I. Joe was very successful because they employed paintings for their artwork on the packaging, where a lot of other toy lines were just doing live action photos, like Star Wars, for example. But can you name the one GI Joe vehicle or figure or whatnot where they actually used live action packaging instead of having a painting done?
Was that in 2000s?
Nope. I'm doing 82 to 94. I never go beyond that really. But what was the one vehicle or whatnot which was live action for a photograph on the front? They didn't do a painting.
Was it that that mail away like ski thing with the thing? It was like a surfboard
The
type.
Manta?
Yeah.
No, that didn't. I don't think that had artwork at all. Actually, if it did, it was just in the catalog. But no, the only one that had live action, it was retail. The Missile Command headquarters,
Missile Command headquarters.
1982. Sears. Missed the cardboard raising. And the reason why,
Yes, that.
by the way, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think the reason why is because the entire Missile Command headquarters itself was basically a painting that was printed out on cardboard. And I think to have a painting of yet another one would kind of, I don't know, take away from the fact. So all they did was they just simply put the Missile Command headquarters, right? Put the three figures that came with it along with it.
Yeah.
So that's the only one. That's the only time they did that.
I think there's a
should've
good bit of
guessed.
trivia to close us out on. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So thank you, Jason Morrell. Thank you, Alexander Morrell. Thank you again, Adam Riches, for taking the time to join us. I will see you guys next time.